and friends and the community at large just want something to be done about it. So we're talking about Good Shepherd Mausoleum in Plains Township. It's an ongoing story as of this recording. Again, my special guest today, let me introduce you to them. Ava Peterson is writing a book. She's from Luzerne County on the Good Shepherd Mausoleum and Cemetery, what's happening there, what she's documented over the years. And she's also taking a look at other abandoned cemeteries around Pennsylvania, around the nation. We'll talk to Ava Peterson. And also Marty Kumar, whose in-laws were entombed in a mausoleum at Good Shepherd. And just last year in 2024, the family paid the expense to remove the remains from the mausoleum because the mausoleum is crumbling around it. So Marty and Ava, thank you for being here today with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And don't be nervous. I always tell people it's only TV. So we're going to talk about a real serious issue, though, because, and again, I've been covering it. It's been getting progressively worse. Just move up a little bit closer to the microphones. Ava, let me start with you first of all. How did you get involved? We met just last year, truth be told. You had seen one of my reports on it. You reached out and said, listen, I'm writing a book on this. And you were very impassioned, very passionate about maybe getting something done at that mausoleum in Plains Township. So tell me what your a brief synopsis of how you got involved.
So I saw it on social media like a lot of people, and I started looking into it. I actually took a visit up there, and it just really interested me how something like that could happen. Like you mentioned earlier, cemeteries do become abandoned. It's unfortunate the churches close, the caretakers disappear, there's no money, but it's just mainly like weeds and grass, like you said. But in this situation, it's unique because it does have a mausoleum, which doesn't happen very often. So it just really caught my interest, and I started looking into how did it happen legally, and that's where I am today.
And where we are today is getting worse literally by the day. And Marty, and you had your in-laws, you and your wife Denise Kumar, who could not be here today, and we've interviewed her dozens of times over the years. You had your in-laws removed from there. What kind of trauma what has this meant to your family over the years?
Well, over the years, Denise couldn't even go to visit her mom and dad at the cemetery because at that time it was coming apart and stuff like that. And she would cry many a times because she couldn't visit them and that. But then we looked into it, and it was going to cost like $10,000 or more to get them out of there and cremated. So to our family, it's relief, and our son Daniel has his grandparents at home now. They were cremated, so they're at home and with us, and we were just glad to do it when we did it.
Okay, and Marty, thank you very much. What we're going to do now for the folks at home, and we've been doing extensive reporting, but we're going to give you some background. This is a report that was done by my colleague Avery Napier, 2022 News. There was a Plains Township Commissioners meeting on Thursday night, which is yesterday as of this recording, Thursday night this week, talking about the Good Shepherd Mausoleum. So let's listen to that piece and we'll talk about it afterwards. Go ahead, Joey Nardone.
I feel like I was here in August, and I warned you guys something like that was possible, and I don't feel like anybody took me seriously.
Ava Peterson has been an advocate for Good Shepherd Memorial Guarded Cemetery and the families of those buried inside for years. After police say 2 bodies were stolen from the cemetery's mausoleum earlier this month, she came to the meeting hoping to see the township take over the cemetery.
I just want to know what you guys are planning on doing in the future, because the outside is still exposed. People could still get in. It's still a hazard.
Officials with the township say since the cemetery is private property, legally, their hands are tied.
We are limited right now. It's one thing if it's just a building and there were no bodies in it with what we could do with condemning, but it's just a whole other level.
Which is where Chris Unitas comes in. Unitas is a local funeral director and has been helping families relocate their loved ones from the cemetery since it was sold to the current owners some 20 years ago. After the thefts, he says he reached out to the Attorney General's office for guidance on the situation. He believes if they were given a court order to remove the remaining 38 bodies from the mausoleum, the answer may lie underground.
When the cemetery was originally built, there were ground crypts that were put in the ground, and we're going to pursue looking at them to try to see if this is a viable option.
An option Unitas says is a last resort, but without communication from the cemetery's owner, Unitas, Peterson, the township, and family members of those left in the mausoleum just want something to be done.
The mausoleum itself is on borrowed time. We're going to have to find a home for all of these people. I don't want to go up there one day and that building have a catastrophic collapse, because at that point, we're not going to be able to identify who's who.
Avery Nape, 2822 News.
You know, really a scary situation when you think about it, because then you were well spoken last night at that meeting, and Marty, you lived it as a family member. I learned something new from that meeting last night. There's underground tombs. Were you aware of that?
Yeah.
What do you know about that?
So in the process of my research, I reached out to family members, funeral directors in the area, just because there's not a lot of information about Good Shepherd. A lot of it's been lost. And in the course of that, somebody had mentioned to me they thought maybe there was graves out there at one time, but it's my understanding that it's actually vaults that were intended to be used in the future if people were to purchase them.
For burials.
Correct, and
So
I
they're
guess they
already
were
in
never
there.
used, yes.
Because as we know, I know there's standards for environmental and health reasons. Vaults have to be used if you're buried in the ground. Now, there are some exceptions, I think, for religious or farmers, that kind of thing. But it's really, no one really talks about cemeteries. I'll be honest with you, I've had an education in the last 4 or 5 years for sure, because we've talked to Pennsylvania Funeral Directors Association, state lawmakers, and it's very unclear. There's no supervising, there's no graveyard czar, right? I mean,
Right.
that sounds crazy, but there's no one really overseeing cemeteries.
Correct. That's correct. That's part of what I wanted to change when I started this book. My end goal is to get legislation passed to close some of those loopholes, get stricter laws, keep an eye on the perpetual care funds so they're not accessible to anybody. The records, I think that somebody should go in yearly and audit the records and make sure who was buried there. Is there a record of it? Are they in the right vault? That would have solved a lot of our issues here.
And I know, in that piece that Avery talked about, we've talked about it as well. The owners bought it. The background is the owners. We're going to run my piece from Tuesday night. The owners bought it in 2005 at a tax sale. They claimed they did not know they were buying a cemetery. Let's run my piece from Tuesday, Joe. Can we do that? Okay, we're going to run that package. We'll talk about it. Okay.
I was very upset. I was devastated, and I was thankful that I had gotten my parents out when I did.
Denise Kumar reacts to word that 2 bodies were stolen from their crypts at the Good Shepherd Mausoleum last week. Plains Township Police say the bodies were removed sometime between November 1st and November 6th. Plains Township boarded up the mausoleum after that theft. Now, we have been reporting on the ongoing deteriorating conditions at Good Shepherd since 2006. One of the owners told me at that time they had no idea they were buying a cemetery at a tax sale in 2005.
We did not purchase the business part of the deal. We do not intend to continue running this place as a cemetery.
They even sued Luzerne County, arguing that point, but lost in court. Plains Township and Luzerne County officials say the owners simply walked away from the cemetery. Kumar removed her parents' remains last year. She wants the township to assume control of the cemetery.
The township needs to step up. Somebody needs to step up in authority and do something about this. This is wrong. To steal a body? I mean, this is not right. It's awful.
Ava Peterson is writing a book about the sad history of Good Shepherd. She has started an online petition calling for action.
What I think should be done is the township should take possession of it. I mean, it's been so long that I don't see they have any other option.
But Plains Township Commissioner Tom Shabula says that is not a viable option for many reasons.
So at this point, it's really in the hands of the owners. The township does not have any responsibility to the cemetery itself. It is a property that is owned by somebody else, and the township really has no say or authority over the cemetery itself.
Really lots of unanswered questions. To go back to the owners now, we did, and you can see all of our reporting on the Good Shepherd situation, the tragedy up there, on our website, 2822news.com. Just go on there, you'll see a search bar. If you put in there Good Shepherd or Mausoleum, or tons of stories will come up. We've talked to state lawmakers. We've talked to funeral directors. Christian Unitas is doing a great job. A lot of the work he does is volunteering to help families get out or give them a good rate to get the remains out. And so we even reached out to family members of the owners And they said, we have nothing to do with it. We have nothing to say about it. But the original owners of the property, we understand, moved to Florida. We've reached out to them numerous times. And truth be told, just this week alone, I had a number for the woman we talked to back in 2006, the lady, one of the co-owners, and it now said undeliverable. So the number's either dead or cut loose or whatever. So we have, and I know the county has been unable to reach them as well, Luzerne County. So to come back to square one, the owners, for all intents and purposes, I can't imagine we're not going to see Daddy Warbucks, the owner, come in there now and say, "Oh, yeah, we didn't know we were buying a cemetery. We're going to take care of it now." That's not going to happen.
No.
So really, the families are left in a lurch still, and now 2 bodies were taken out. That's under investigation by Plains Township Police. So really, it's still in limbo as literally the mausoleum is crumbling. You go up there, it's worse every day.
It's worse every day. I had initially gone to the township in August, which I did bring up last night, and mentioned to them, I did come here and let you know something like this was a potential, and nobody even went up there and took a look at it or, maybe boarded it up at that point. I mean, boarding it up is not a long-term option, but it would have prevented what happened from happening.
And Marty, I know we talked to you and Denise, your wife, on earlier this week. When you heard that the bodies were stolen, what did you think?
I couldn't believe it. And I thought it was a Halloween type thing that went on, And, but I just, why would somebody do that, And just pick 2 bodies, maybe they knew them or something like that. That's what I thought, But who boarded it up this week? Who did the boarding?
The township did.
The township did it after the horse left the barn.
Right.
Correct.
But I just don't, it's just a sad thing. It's really a sad thing that this goes on in this world today, You hear of other places, but, everything is going to be in your own backyard.
And we're going to talk about that also, and we'll in the next segment. But Good Shepherd, I hate to say, is the poster child for abandoned cemeteries. But briefly, we'll talk more about it in the next segment again. But briefly, you've seen this is a big problem nationwide, right? Especially in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, especially in Pennsylvania, but it is in other states as well.
Have you seen anything quite as bad as this in your research?
Just the Roger Williams is the only glaring example
Is
in
that
our country.
Connecticut?
That is in Connecticut, yes.
And
Or
what
no,
hap-
it's in Rhode Island.
In
I'm
Rhode
sorry.
Island, okay.
Yes.
And I do think, and what happens is all these families, and I remember over the years, the sad part is several of the people I talked to, this is going back to 2015, 16, as it was getting worse, they're no longer with us. They passed away. They were already up in age, and they didn't know what to do. They didn't have the money to remove their loved ones and their loved ones' remains. And, they can't even fight it. And who's going to fight for the problem? Part of the problem is, big problem is, Ava, you're fighting for it for sure. I know Denise and Marty are. They have to have someone on their side.
Yes.
And I know you've been passionate about it.
Yes.
But respect the dead, number one, but who's there to be their voice? That's still the unanswered question.
Yeah, I can only do so much.
Well, and the thing is too, and you're doing it volunteering and stuff like that, but people, I think, have to care. And I know the township commissioners do care, and there's all kind of legal issues. I'm not a lawyer. I don't pretend to be one. There's all kind of legal issues, so that could be a Pandora's box, possibly, again, playing devil's advocate. If they take it over, now are they responsible for everything? I don't know. That's a question for lawyers. We'll be doing more podcasts on that for sure as this unfolds. And I don't think it's going to unfold in a good way, unfortunately. We already have 2 bodies taken out. And we'll talk about that investigation coming up. I talked to Luzerne County District Attorney Sam Sangodoci about the investigation. I also talked to Wyoming County DA and former federal prosecutor Joe Peters about, in general, about the market for human remains. Really on the dark web, something that we're getting educated upon as this story moves forward. Okay, Joe Nardone, our producer, I call him director. He does everything here in the streaming center. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back after this. Welcome back to this edition of the Mehalshick Files on 2822 Now app. We're coming to you from the 2822 streaming center at the studios of 2822 News. That's a lot of 2822 News, right? But today we're talking about the situation at Good Shepherd Memorial Gardens is the official name, but everyone knows Good Shepherd Mausoleum and Cemetery. When I say everyone knows, not in a good way, because it's do I use the word infamous at this point? My guest today is our Ava Peterson, who's writing a book and researching abandoned cemeteries, but she's writing a book mainly on Good Shepherd, how we got where we are today. And Marty Kumar, whose in-laws were entombed at the mausoleum at Good Shepherd, and they removed them last year at the family's expense through the help of Christian Ives, a funeral director who's really been taking a bull by the horns as well to try and get something done along with Ava and Denise. So we're talking about a situation there. 2 bodies were stolen recently, as of this recording, last week, between November 1st and November 6th. 2 bodies, human remains taken. My understanding now, we have since learned they were entombed for quite a while in that cemetery. So it wasn't like it was a recent death. It's horrible either way, but they were entombed there for a while. And my understanding is they were on the inside of the mausoleum and they were stolen. I talked to Luzerne County DA Sam Sangaldoci about the investigation and other items pertaining to the sale and trafficking of human remains. Here's how that interview went with DA Sangaldoci. Sam, I know the investigation at the Good Shepherd body theft is ongoing. Is there anything you could shed some light, anything you could say about that as of today, Friday morning?
Only that the Plains Township Police Department is handling it. They're the lead on the investigation. I know Detective Smith has been working on it pretty much around the clock, and he's been consulting our office when it comes to legal decisions as the investigation proceeds. But because it's ongoing, there's really not too much information I can release.
And I know, a lot of people were asking the question, why would someone steal a human body, corpse remains, that kind of thing? And again, we're clarifying, full disclosure, the investigation in Plains is ongoing, so we don't know what the motivation is. It might be just pure meanness or vandalism, but we also understand there is a market, and people have been charged with federal charges with the trafficking, stealing, or selling of human remains and or bones. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, the times that we see these types of thefts, they're usually not decomposed parts. It seems the motivation for that is pretty macabre. What we usually see, and nowadays we usually see it through the dark web, is people obtaining human organs and body parts to be used or to be tested, experimented upon, and they are, recently deceased. So the motivation in the case that Plains is investigating, obviously we don't know for sure, but I couldn't even take a guess. Whereas if they were more recent deaths, we might have a better idea of what they were doing.
And one last question, Sam. Just generally speaking, we talk about a lot of things on the dark web. So really nothing's off limits on the dark web as far as sale, trading, or anything like that.
That's correct. So our detectives have gone through it, and I actually went through it myself and was very shocked to learn all the things that are readily available. Within 15 minutes, I had a log on, and the instructor asked us to go out and shop for human kidneys, fentanyl, illegal firearms. All of them are readily available, and it's far too complex to get into how it works right now. But the fact that it's, I didn't even know where the dark web was before this training, and now that within 15 minutes you can get on there and be basically anonymous is a frightening fact, and law enforcement, thankfully, with the help of the federal government, is getting better and better at tracking this down and putting a stop to it.
Okay, thank you, Sam Sangaldoci.
You're very welcome, Andy.
Okay, that interview was done today as of recording of this podcast, which is streaming at 9 p.m. Thursday night on the 2822 Now app. We have information, by the way, on our website, 2822news.com. If you're watching this, that you can give to other people. Obviously, if you found us, but if other people are trying to find this web and download it, go to 2822news.com. There's a tutorial on there with how to do it. So, you're talking about the dark web, and listen, we weren't born yesterday. We know nefarious things are out there, but that's pretty dark when again, we don't know what the situation with Plains is, but even putting that aside for a second, the sale of human body parts online, skeletons, remains, is not uncommon. So that's what makes this even more of a scary situation.
It's very disturbing.
As a family member, Marty, you had removed your in-laws last year. So you got to be thinking, what are other families thinking when they hear about these two bodies being stolen? What are they thinking now? It was bad enough, but now you have a theft, and they were bold. Now, truth be told, Good Shepherds, and there's really no one there. I mean, cars travel by there, but it's not like it's in town somewhere where you might be spotted.
Right. I guess what they really need to do is get more people to watch the cemetery. And, it's hard to say, it's real dark there and everything. What are you going to do? Have somebody just with a flashlight looking around in that? But there's got to be something that that Plains can do in that, and to help the cemetery out. Really.
What I was wondering was, and I'm just throwing this out as an option too, and again, there's no daddy warbucks out there. Things cost money, but a game camera is not that expensive. They won't prevent things, but if you put signs up even on public right away, this area under camera surveillance, and put some game cameras up, or we have Ring doorbells that catch everything. Those kind of situations where if they're web activated, you'll at least see activity there. I'm not saying you'll be watching. We know there's limited manpower. We know we have enough time fighting crime in neighborhoods. And some would say, unfortunately, well, why are we protecting a cemetery? But just take some kind of steps to put at least speed bumps up to deter people, maybe, Ava.
Yeah, I think cameras would be a big deterrent. Like you said, they can't watch it all the time, but if something did happen, they would have some sort of notice of what happened or who did it.
We're going to talk about your research, but very quickly, Joey Nardone, let's run the interview now with Wyoming County and DA Joe Peters, a former prosecutor. He talks about this case, but more in general about the sale of human body parts on the web. You saw this case in Luzerne County with the human remains, the bodies taken out of a mausoleum. I know Luzerne County investigators are moving forward with that investigation, but the bigger question many people have is, unless that was pure vandalism and meanness, but there's a market out there, correct, for human body parts, bones, relics, if you will. I mean, expound on that. What do you know about that?
There is a national and global market, Andy, for human body parts of all sorts, including remains. So as you said, let us hope that this was purely vandalism, still sad and disrespectful, but it could be part of a larger issue. The transplant industry legitimately exists for donors who voluntarily choose to give an organ or at death to donate their bodies to science, and there are system calls for that. There's also an entire illicit and underworld when it comes to trafficking in live organs and trafficking in body parts.
And I know, and again, the investigation is still moving forward. I understand there also is maybe I wouldn't say religious component, but some cultures around the world, I'm not saying northeastern Pennsylvania per se, but certain things are used in ceremonies or rituals in other places around the world, or maybe even the country.
Yeah, there are those countries and those native tribes that ceremonially do these things, but that's far and away the vast minority. There is a black market which generates hundreds of thousands, probably millions of dollars a year in the sale of stolen parts. Those people that can't wait for an organ transplant because they fear they're going to die will engage in transplant tourism, where they will travel the globe and find a country with less rigid medical and ethical rules and get a body part. And in those countries where they're getting the transplant, they don't know where that body part is coming from. They don't know the circumstances from which it was, quote, harvested.
And you were talking also, we've heard a lot about, last question, Joe, the dark web. Virtually everything's available on the dark web, correct?
Everything is available on the dark web. And there was a case in Pennsylvania that had a Pennsylvania connection just about 2 years ago. A gentleman in Bloomsburg was charged as being part of a ring. And that ring allowed people to go allegedly to a morgue at Harvard and basically go shopping in person for body parts and remains. And those parts were allegedly shipped across the country, again involving a person in Pennsylvania, whether it was faces, brains, genitalia, and then the indictment further alleged that in one case, the skin from the faces was being used to tan. It's horrible to say, almost like leather for sick cult activities.
Okay, Wyoming County District Attorney Joe Peters, I appreciate your time today. Thank you for your expertise and your insight, and we'll talk to you soon.
Good to be with you.
Okay, scary thoughts. We have less than a minute to go. Your closing thoughts, and we'll have you back for another podcast. Your closing thoughts on the situation, Good Shepherd, moving forward. What do you want to see done there?
I just hope that this will spur somebody, whether it's the township, maybe they can't help us, but they can reach out to a government body who can. I mean, as citizens, what can we really do? But in my mind, they have more power than we do to get help.
Okay, Ava, thank you. Marty, last word.
You're welcome.
I'm just thinking about the people that have their family in there, and if they can just try to get their family members out, there's got to be help out there to help doing it like they helped us getting ours out.
Okay, Marty Kumar and Ava Peterson, thank you very much. We'll have more on your book as you're working moving forward. We want to thank you for joining us today. We'll stay on top of this Good Shepherd Mausoleum with the body theft investigation in the days ahead. And if you think you can help out with the situation, feel free to contact us here at 2822 News or point us in the right direction where maybe the families can get some help. For joining our donor, our producer, director, thank you very much. We've been watching the Mehalshick Files. We'll see you soon, and most importantly, stay safe. Welcome to the 2822 Now streaming center at the studios of 2822 News in beautiful downtown Wilkes-Barre, Luzerne County. My name is Andy Mehalshick, lead investigator here at 2822 News. Today we're talking about a subject that really has gained a lot of attention, including national attention, a story here in Luzerne County, the theft, grave robbery of two bodies from the Good Shepherd Mausoleum and Cemetery in Luzerne County in Plains Township. Now, that happened about 2 weeks ago at the mausoleum that had been falling apart over the last 20 years for sure. The I-Team has well documented the problems at Good Shepherd. You can check them out on our website, 2822news.com. But today we're going to talk about why would somebody, again, it's all speculation, the investigation is ongoing, this is not information from the investigators, but we're going to talk to Dr. Mary Pascucci, who is a pathologist, an anatomical and clinical pathologist, and we met years ago. Dr. Pascucci has done autopsies, all kind of investigation into death in cases in Luzerne County and well beyond Luzerne County. So we're going to get her take on what's happening in Good Shepherd, and maybe we're going to look at some possibilities. Why would someone steal bones or remains of humans? Dr. Pascucci, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
And I said, I tell people, not a day goes by, as of this recording, the investigation is ongoing, and we'll have some background stories coming up. But it's really, first of all, let me get your take on it. If we could run some video, Joey, of Good Shepherd. Joey Nardone, our producer and director, Paul Davis, my photographer, is also here. What was first of all, give me your background. Give me your professional background. Let people know who you are and how you ended up being a pathologist.
Sure. Well, I am a physician, and my specialty is anatomic and clinical pathology. And the difference is, as I explain, is anatomic is the portion of pathology that deals with tissues, bodies, parts. That's reading biopsies, things like cytology. The portion also that deals with autopsies. That's a subspecialty, more forensics, which I have also training in. And the other portion is clinical pathology,
Pathology.
which is more laboratory medicine. So when you're dealing with toxicology, blood work, any studies on bodily fluids, that is that portion. So it's a combination.
And then you were saying before, I think we've done stories over the years in all kind of cases, many of them unsolved cases, because people are fascinated, as am I, with how these cases are solved in that morgue, in that lab, or by labs. And we'll talk about that momentarily, but you also have specialized training or training in forensic pathology. People see these TV shows, forensic unit, that kind of thing, and are fascinated by it. What is forensic pathology?
Yeah, as I said, it's a subspecialty under anatomic, but it really combines everything in pathology, because when you're looking at an autopsy, you're looking at not only the anatomy, dissection of organs, but you're also looking at a lot of the lab work, the toxicology that goes along with it. So it's combining. And it's, again, you're looking at really cause of death, which after investigation with other specialties, would be law enforcement, whatever, you can put the story together to come to a manner of death for why someone passed and how they passed.
I remember, again, over the years doing different stories, and they're really, really fascinating. There's a phrase that the person who died was murdered. They can tell you how they died.
Absolutely.
While it may not be obvious, they can tell you how they died.
Absolutely.
You've seen death in every shape or form. So, and it's a creepy subject for sure.
Well, it's.
But we all deal with it at one time or another.
Death is a part of life, and we all deal with it. And as you just touched upon, there was years ago there was a book out. It was something along the line of "Dead Men Do Tell Tales,"
Right.
And they do. You just have to learn how to read it, and that's what forensics does. We are reading. The body tells the story. You just have to know how to interpret what it's saying.
It's really fascinating. And again, just some more background on you. I know you've done work in numerous counties in Pennsylvania and beyond, and also you've testified as an expert in different cases.
Absolutely,
Just
yeah.
expand on that a little bit. Your background as far as helping put investigations together.
It's, and I've testified in both criminal and civil cases, but as I said, it's just putting, if someone is to blame for that death, it's putting out there, explaining to a jury why that person came to be that situation. So it's putting a story together to explain to a jury and put it in their hands for what happens.
We've seen so many cases. Recently, we did a story, a podcast on the death of Bobby Curley from Wilkes-Barre on thallium poisoning.
Oh, I remember
And
that.
in the beginning, and that podcast also is part of the Mehalshick files. You can check it out. Go to 2822 Now app. You'll see that story on the Bob Curley death in 1991 from Luzerne County. Really fascinating, but it ties in with this, what we're talking about, forensic pathology, clinical pathology, putting the piece together. And in the beginning, the doctors, they weren't looking for thallium poisoning. Everyone thinks it's like a magic wand in a hospital. You take a blood test, you can figure everything out.
Exactly.
But so you have to be sometimes looking for a specific item, correct?
Exactly. It's as you don't take a blood test and find a poison unless you're looking for it. That's how the lab is set up. So you have many of them. You have to have a suspicion to test, and the same thing for drug testing. When you're doing drug testing, there are different panels to to look for. Otherwise, it gets missed.
Okay, so let me, can we run the veal of Good Shepherd here, Joey? I know we're on a little bit of a detour there, but Good Shepherd, 2 bodies were stolen again between November 1st and November 6th. What did you think when you heard about it? I mean, your initial impression. I know when I called you about doing this podcast, there was a long pause on the other end because I know you had an opinion or at least speculation, but what do you think about the whole situation? What was your reaction when you heard that?
Honestly, it was a bit surprising, but then also not surprising, because as we get into it, when I explain why and not surprising, it's unfortunate. It happened because of the condition of.
It made it easier.
Exactly,
Sure.
It made it easy to get in, get out, and take what they wanted.
Easy, right.
But not surprising that it happened for let's say the market today. Not a surprise.
And we're going to talk about that momentarily. I really want to get your take on it because you're a physician. You've dealt with life and death and everything in between. And people, I think, when they're laid to rest or buried, or especially put in a mausoleum, like to think that's the end of the story. So let me, Joe, let's run the story from. Let's see, the first package, 11/17/25. The first package, 11/20/17. We just talked to a family whose grandmother was stolen. It was this past week. Roll it, Joe.
It was a shock. I didn't have words to say to him. I thought it was a joke. And it was sickening after I processed it.
Vince Cappellini talks about his reaction after receiving a call from the Luzerne County coroner about 2 weeks ago, telling him that the body of his grandmother, Mary Cappellini Pega, was one of 2 bodies that were stolen from the Good Shepherd Mausoleum in Plains Township. She was laid to rest there in 1979 after leading a full life of more than 80 years. The troubled mausoleum is crumbling. Problems here have been reported on and documented by the I-Team. Now, the owners walked away from the cemetery and the mausoleum years ago, leaving families in limbo.
Well, once I talked to the coroner, my first response is, what's next? He indicated they were going to perhaps do some kind of DNA, and they were going to follow up on some leads. I then contacted the rest of my family members and explained to them what occurred. And they were just horrified, baffled, and shocked.
He just wants to know why this was done.
All I can say is whatever motivated this person or these persons to do this horrific act, I feel for them and pray for them, and I hope that they get help and find peace.
For now, Cappellini says he tries to focus on the good, loving memories of his grandmother he called Nona.
Loving person, kind, great cook. Ravioli, couldn't touch it. The best on Sunday meals. My sister, my cousins, we would all gather, my dad, my uncle. It was just the place to be on Sunday. And that's why this is just so disheartening. And every day, it's the first thing I think of when I get up.
And Vince Cappellini was a well-known local trial attorney, and the Cappellini family is a well-known family in northeastern Pennsylvania. So as the names started coming out, you start to think about these kind of things. No one could be ruled out of being involved in something horrible like this. You heard his comment. I couldn't believe it. Are you kidding me? The shock.
Yeah, exactly.
So the body, and again, as far as Good Shepherd goes, it's been falling apart for 20 years. We start covering it, Dr. Pascucci, back in 2006, the I-Team. And back then, the complaints were high grass, not being done. Where's the candles that were supposed to be put on there? Just unkept. From 2006, over the years, progressively got worse. And again, you can see all of our stories. Basically, the owners said they bought it. Well, they bought it at a tax sale in 2005. Didn't know it was a cemetery, and they told us on camera, "We're not here to run a cemetery," and they walked away. We've been trying to get in touch with them so far without success, but they walked away from it, leaving hundreds of families in the lurch, especially several dozen in that mausoleum. So, as we said before, that mausoleum is falling apart, crumbling apart. It's in the middle of nowhere. Do you think it was? So you're not surprised that the bones were taken, the remains were taken. Just very briefly, and we'll expound on it when we come back after break. Why aren't you surprised?
Because the market for human remains right now is substantial. It's large. So it's money for somebody.
And when you say a market, and I know Vince is, and he said to me, we're a family of faith, we're praying for them to get help. So these folks may not need help per se. They may be doing it for some kind of financial reward, correct?
Absolutely. That's exactly what this is. You know, when a lot of times when people say, you know, bones are missing, bodies are gone, everyone wants to think, oh, you've got some cult, some religion, and they're using these for the rituals. And I don't discount that. You know, I know that is there. But the market for human remains, which we can get into how I know that, is huge. I am seeing on online sites everything from cremains, which are ashes from cremations, being sold. I said they're parsed out into packages, and people are buying packages of strangers' cremains, to skulls, to wet specimens, and wet specimens are. Everybody knows what skeletal remains are, so you say skull, you know, bone.
Right.
But a wet specimen is a specimen where tissue is still present.
remaining there,
Exactly.
even if it's 50 years old.
Exactly.
There's some remnants
So
there.
exactly. So you're looking at a specimen with tissue in a glass jar, in a preservative. So it's preserved looking in a jar.
We're going to talk more about that because a lot of people, we touched upon this last week in one of our stories. We were talking to several of our district attorney contacts, and they said that they were talking about the dark web, and that there are people or groups out there who use this kind of these human remains as a trophy. We're going to take a quick break. Joe Nardone gave me the nod. We'll be back on the Mehalshick Files with Dr. Mary Pascucci talking about the Good Shepherd theft of 2 bodies there, but even the larger picture as a pathologist and physician, you know, what are body parts normally used for and why there's an interest in it, a big interest worldwide. We'll be back after this short break. Welcome back to the Mehalshick Files on the 2822 Now app. I'm Andy Mehalshick, lead IT reporter here at 2822 News. I've been doing reporting for some 50 years, investigative reporting, really focusing on the stories, the untold stories for a good 35, 40 years. And over the years, we've heard about mausoleums being broken into, graves dug up, human remains being taken, and there was always usually an explanation. There was a gentleman, I won't say gentleman, there was a guy, maybe about 25, 30 years ago, who broke into a mausoleum in Wilkes-Barre and stole the remains or just bones from a mother and a daughter who died, I believe, from malaria back in 1900. And he just had a fetish for human remains. He wasn't a devil worshiper or satanic cult, it turned out, and he served prison time. He just had a fetish for human remains. My guest today is Dr. Mary Pascucci. She's an anatomic, clinical pathologist, and you have a specialty in forensics pathology. And the reason I say forensics, there's all these TV shows out there, the forensic unit. People are fascinated with how crimes are solved, and the layperson looks at something and says, oh, it must be that, whatever, but how do you prove it? You're part of that team, investigative team, and like we said before, Dr. Pascucci, dead men, dead women can tell tales.
Absolutely.
By how they died. And just expound on that before we go to another story, package on the Good Shepherd. Expound on when you say they can tell tales. In what way, basically?
Absolutely. Bodies tell the story. It takes somebody who's trained to tell that story. And that's what I've done. I'm looking for patterns. I'm looking for different changes. That tells me how they died, why they died, what happened before or after death, but bringing that story forward. And I said, dead men, women tell tales, and they don't lie. As just bringing what you see forward to explain. And you said it's being part of the team, is being part of the whole investigative team, be law enforcement, what I've done, the whole corner system. It's everybody putting what their individual portions together explains the package,
the pieces of the puzzle,
the whole thing.
And we talked before, and you can see it on the Mehalshick Files podcast, the Bob Curley thallium poisoning. His wife pled guilty, Joanne Curley. She served, I think, 20 years in prison. She spiked his iced tea with thallium. In the beginning, he was very sick, flu-like symptoms. Check it out, that podcast. It's really fascinating. We talked to Bob Curley's sister and District Attorney Peter Polishevsky, who was really also a bulldog district attorney investigating it. But for a while, it was in a quagmire until they said, we have to get a team to look at this.
Right.
Your basic autopsy didn't find it. So check that one out. So we're going back to Good Shepherd, Mausoleum in Plains Township, where 2 bodies were stolen between November 1st, November 6th. It's well documented by the I-Team. You can check it out on 2822 News. And since then, police are investigating it. And we'll talk about how hard it would be to track somebody down who stole bodies. But today we're really talking to Dr. Pascucci about why they would steal. What's the interest? I mean, and we'll talk about that. But first, let's run Joe Nardone, my story from a couple of days ago about, we really were talking about the market for human remains. Let's run that piece and we'll talk about it. Good afternoon. We've learned that the bodies that were stolen were entombed at the Good Shepherd Mausoleum for quite some time, at least the last 10 or 15 years, and that Plains Township Police are working what they describe as several solid leads. And they're not releasing too much information at this point, if any, so as not to jeopardize the investigation, because quite frankly, only the thieves would know certain details of that crime. So at this point, we also do not know the motivation for the theft. So there has been a lot of speculation. Now, the Good Shepherd Cemetery and Mausoleum has been deteriorating for the last 2 decades. The owners walked away from the property, claiming they did not know they were buying a cemetery at a Luzerne County tax sale back in 2005. So over the years, dozens of families have been scrambling to have their remains of their loved ones removed from that mausoleum. It is falling apart, literally. The thefts of the 2 bodies has now created a renewed sense of urgency to find some sort of resolution to the problem. Now, Plains Township officials say their hands are tied because this is private property. I spoke today with Wyoming County District Attorney Joe Peters, who says as police investigate the motive, there is a demand for human remains, namely on the so-called dark web.
There is a national and global market, Andy, for human body parts of all sorts, including remains. So as you said, let us hope that this was purely vandalism, still sad and disrespectful, but it could be part of a larger issue.
Now, coming up later, we'll talk to Luzerne County DA Sam Sagandoci about the investigation, and we'll be taking a much closer look, a deeper dive into the ongoing situation at Good Shepherd on the Mehalshick Files podcast, 2822 News on the 2822 Now app tonight, streaming at 9 p.m. We have more information on how to find the app, how to download. Okay, so that was a recorded story from a couple of days ago, and it's still unsolved as far as we know. Now, we reached out to investigators, the district attorney's office, Plains Township Police, and they're keeping it close to the vest, as they say, or chest, because we understand they're working solid leads. What the leads could be, we don't know, but that's why I brought you in, because you've helped usually solve cases in recent deaths, but even later deaths. So we're not focusing on the deaths of Mrs. Pega. We already know she died back in 1979, but why would somebody, heard DA Joe Peters talk about a huge global market? Expound on that. What do you know? What are you aware of with that stuff?
Sure. And that's why I said I need to take you into my world to explain what I see. You know my background, you know my interests, and you know I know you've talked about the dark web, and you don't have to go to the dark web. There are, I'm going to use a term, and a generalized term. There are oddity groups, and that generally means now items that are unique. Certainly, you're not seeing these things every day, everywhere.
You're not seeing it in Walmart.
Exactly. You're not buying them off Amazon.
And I'm not being facetious about it, but
No, exactly.
The folks who have an interest in this kind of stuff, macabre as it is, they know where to go, correct?
And that's exactly it. And you hit the word. It deals more on the macabre side. And a lot of it is animal parts. I've seen a lot of taxidermy, wet specimens, snakes in jars are particularly popular. But it also, these groups, and I admit, I am part of the oddity groups online, various sites that I'm not in the dark web. However, in my groups, human remains are, bought, sold, traded. These are the groups online. People are showing their items, buying, selling, instead trading, in search of, I see a lot of ISOs. And skulls are particularly popular. So since we spoke earlier, I just did a quick review of my groups, and there was an ISO, human skulls.
We say ISO. What does that mean?
In search of. Somebody put it in search of human skulls, and it was very specific. Condition wasn't important. No questions asked. So, they don't care where these are sourced. They're willing to buy. As I said, a lot of bones are there. The cremings are, as I said, sold by the package. These are the sites. I said one of the most shocking specimens that I saw recently, probably in summer, was somebody who was selling a human head, a wet specimen, human head, in a jar, in a preservative.
Not a skull. A
No, with facial features and
on these.
Exactly.
Quick question. Just to interject for a second. We only have about 4 minutes left, 5 minutes left. Wouldn't that be a case of murder? I mean, isn't someone policing this? And we don't know. That's a topic for another podcast. But
how
is that on the web and not law enforcement getting involved?
That's, as you said, a question for another podcast. I don't know. These groups I'm part of, is anyone policing these? Highly doubtful. Is it legal for these human remains to even be bought and sold from state to state? Again, not my question to answer, but it's done. And these are the groups to go to when people are looking for these. Again, why does somebody want strangers' cremains? I don't know. Why would you want some head on your shelf? I don't know. it doesn't say how this is sourced. Is this taken from a med school? Is it taken from a museum? No idea. But it's there, and you can certainly buy these. And I confessed to you earlier. I said I have a skeleton in my office. I have a few skulls, but I've used those as not only to learn from. I've taught using those items, but why anybody else would want them, I can't answer that.
We have 1 minute to go. Joan Rondon, thank you. This is such a deep topic. Macabre for sure.
Absolutely.
But it's out there.
Yep.
And I can tell you, Dr. Pascucci, when we first started covering this, our social media sites are lighting up with people saying, check out these groups, check out online. And now we have seen people arrested for selling body parts. There was a gentleman from Columbia County. I don't mean to use the word gentleman. He was from Columbia County. He pled guilty to selling, I believe he pled guilty. He's in process now of selling body parts for people who need kidney transplants, that kind of thing. You can understand that to a point. But with bones and remains like Good Shepherd, and we're not saying that's what they were stolen for. We don't know yet. Police investigating. Okay, we're going to wrap up now. Check out our podcast on the 2822 Now app. And we have more information on our website, 2822news.com. Dr. Mary Pascucci, thank you very much. We'll have more in the days ahead for sure. I'm Andy Mehalshick. Mehalshick Files edition ends for now. We'll see you soon. And most importantly, stay safe out there.